Welcome to GNCC's Espresso Live from the Corner Office, where we bring you conversations with top leaders and executives who are shaping industries, communities, and driving innovation. This webinar is powered by Niagara Economic Development, helping businesses prosper. Their mandate is to promote Niagara on a global scale and to work in partnership with the region's 12 municipalities to provide effective, innovative services that encourage investment in and travel to the region, along with business support services to attract, remain, and increase jobs in Niagara. And speaking on behalf of Niagara Economic Development is Regional Councillor Diana Houston, who's also the chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee, a member of numerous Niagara region committees, as well as serving as the vice chair of the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Ontario Caucus. Councillor Houston, over to you.
Thank you, Mishka, and good morning, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you today, joining Espresso Live. And I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our host, Mishka Balsom, and also to the distinguished guest, Dr. Deborah Rosati. As a proud representative of Niagara Economic Development, I'm excited to engage with you on the vital topic of leadership and innovation in today's ever-evolving business landscape. Dr. Rosati's journey with Women Get On Board is an inspiring testament to the power of diverse leadership and the importance of supporting women in business. In Niagara, we understand that economic growth is driven by the strength and creativity of our local leaders. Our focus is not just on attracting new business, but also on nurturing our existing enterprises, ensuring they thrive in an environment that celebrates innovation and inclusivity. Today, as we delve into the emerging trends and the shifting dynamics of the business world, let's remember the critical role that collaboration and mentorship play in building the future. Initiatives like Women Get On Board are pivotal in fostering a community where diverse voices are not just heard, but amplified. This aligns perfectly with our commitment to creating a thriving economic environment right here in Niagara. As we listen to Dr. Rosati's insights, I encourage each of you to think about how we can support one another, how we can harness our collective strengths to create a business environment that is not only prosperous, but equitable. Thank you for being here today, and let's look forward to a stimulating discussion ahead.
Councillor Houston, thank you so very much, and thank you so very much for your words as well. They totally align and resonate with the purpose of this specific webinar. And as well, I wanted to express my thanks to the Niagara Economic Development for being really the power behind it and bringing these important voices together. So thank you for that. And thank you to all of our attendees who are here with us live at this moment. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. If you would like to enable live transcript, you can find that option on your Zoom screen. And if throughout the next little while, if you experience any technical difficulties, utilize the chat function and one of my colleagues will be able to assist you. And today's format that you've asked for actually is always a very interactive one. So many of you have provided us with some of the questions that you would like us to ask here, and we are committed to getting to all of them. But please, if during the dialogue and conversation you have any questions that you would like to also be brought forward, please utilize the chat function. Those questions come directly to me, and I'm very much committed to bringing them into our dialogue. And lastly, just a heads up that today's session is recorded and can be shared afterwards. And now, over to our distinguished guest, Dr. Deborah Rosati, an award-winning entrepreneur, corporate director, and founder of Women Get On Board, Inc., a social purpose company with 950 members dedicated to advancing women in corporate governance. Through her company, Deborah fosters a strong community of future women corporate directors, emphasizing education, mentorship, and allyship under the principle, the power of three. 1 woman in the boardroom is a token, 2 a presence, and 3 a voice. As seasoned corporate director, Deborah currently chairs the board of Profound Impact Corporation and has extensive experience leading public company audit and governance committees. Her commitment to board diversity stems from her own journey as often the only woman in the boardroom, driving her belief that diverse boards are good business. And I think the stats support that as well. Dedicated to fostering positive change, Deborah applies an ESG lens to all board work. She recently co-founded Women Funding Women, Inc. to bridge the funding gap for female founders. Known for her thought leadership on governance, EDI, and sustainability, Deborah shares her insights at deborahrosati.ca. Deborah, we are so thrilled to have you here with us today. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And to our audience, we equally thank you for listening, for being part of it. You have shaped the questions that are coming forward here. And when we looked at the questions, we kind of thought they fit into a couple of 4 maybe distinct buckets. The first one is the personal leadership journey. I think many of you have expressed to seeing what are the early steps that we take to take us on the journey that we're on right now. Career highlights were key to you as well. And naturally, with all that Deborah does, community involvement was of equal importance. And then as well, we're finding ourselves here in this present moment, and we're maybe looking and saying, what do the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years bring? What are some of those future goals? And lastly, we're going to wrap it up with actually what we call our one answer rapid questions. They are just fun questions to ask, and some of you have provided us with some ideas, and we've incorporated them in our questions to come. But let me start out, Deborah. Congratulations on a remarkable career to this point. This is really, when I read your bio, when I looked at your career and the path that you've taken, it's been amazing. And if we look back, and if you're looking at your early journey and your beginnings in it, I was wondering if you had any any pivotal moments in your early career that influenced the path that you have taken. I always think it's such an interesting question. We find ourselves today, and we might look back on the decisions we made just a couple of years back that led us to this point in time. And if you look at your early career, any pivotal moments that said they were the foundation to where you are today?
Well, thank you, Mishka, for that beautiful and very welcoming introduction. Oh, where do I start? I think the pivotal moment that I'll speak to really brings me to Niagara, because I grew up in Toronto. And my dad, when I was in grade 13, back in the day when there was grade 13 in Ontario, my dad was relocated and took a role as the publisher of the Welland Evening Tribune. And I was just finishing grade 13, and I was destined to go into business school. And I moved down to Niagara in the summer of 1980, before first year university, and I found out that Brock University had a co-op accounting program. That was a pivotal moment for me. I found out that I could live at home, buy a car, do co-op, become a CA. I'm like, that sounds good. I want that. And that was really pivotal, because I was planning to go to Wilfrid Laurier and do my business degree. And so moving down to Niagara, it was really pivotal to find out that there was this first co-op accounting program. I could article, I could get my business degree. And to me, that was pivotal. And I would never look back on saying, why did it happen? I think it happened for a reason. And thank you to both my parents for relocating us down to the Niagara region. So that was pivotal and instrumental in my beginning of my journey as in my career.
It's so interesting, Deborah, when you mentioned the Welland Tribune. The reason I actually moved to Niagara was also due to the newspapers. It was actually a position at the St. Catharines Standard. At the time, I had worked for the same chain, but I had worked for that company at the time in Edmonton. I was looking for a change, and I had thought as well, for maybe for a year or 2 years, I would move to Niagara, and then many years later, I'm still here. So this is interesting that we have that media aspect of it actually in common, that has brought your dad down, but with it actually you as well. Early on, so you moved to a new community from Toronto. It would have been an adjustment at the time, and I think it's always a critical time when we look at grade 13, starting university. any challenges that you faced early on in moving to Niagara, in taking this route, and how did it change maybe your approach to things? How did it shape you, your personal growth? Because a transition at that age is not that easy.
I think it was sheer determination and I always said instrumentally, I wanted to be a businessman just like my father.
Yeah.
So business was my thing. It's my passion. I love it. And so going through the program, recognizing as part of a co-op program, you are articling with a public accounting firm. And back in the early 80s, I will tell you, at 19 years old, having my first tax season with all men in the office, it was in Welland, it was at Dunwoody, and there was no role models. There was no one that looked like me, and I did not play hockey. I did not, you know, play poker. I just did not do. But between a combination of school, part-time work, articling, I really didn't have a lot of extra time. So I just really focused on my end game, which was to finish school and become a CA. But I did have some challenges along the way. I had a senior partner that pulled me in his office one day and said I would never be a CA. And I think that really defined the future for me, where, you know, you sort of say, don't let others define you. And that was really pivotal for me because I could have gone home discouraged, but I had great support from my family. And I had a great office manager that believed in me as well. And so I just knew I was in this program, and it's like, you can't tell me I can't be a CA, just watch. And I did. I was very successful on my first writing of my exams and became a CA. And so that early journey was really important to me. I'd be called, you know, I'd go in on, you know, I'd be a, you know, audit job. I'd go out to clients and they'd say, okay, well, you know, when your boss comes, I'd be like, no, I'm the senior audit manager here. They'd be like, well, can you get the coffee? I said, no, I'm not the coffee girl. And, you know, I had a lot of those moments, but I didn't feel like I had to go to war. I just showed up and did my best and was very, very determined.
Yeah. You know what, but some of the experiences that you mentioned, we've heard from so many other women leaders in today's, even now, that are still experiencing the same, especially when you mentioned when they enter a boardroom or when they enter a business, the assumption that there's certain assumptions that are still being made. I think probably to a lesser degree now than what we've seen in the past, but still forever present. I also think when I listen to your story, how fortunate that you've had a family that supported you, because I'm wondering about those individuals who, when you're being pulled into an office and you're being told, no, you will never succeed in this profession, how many people actually would walk away from that profession and would maybe agree with what they have been told. So I think it makes me think that likely your dad was a role model when it comes to business person and emulating that. Any other mentors that you in your early years kind of reached out to or that you could lean on that were there for you, that were significant in influencing you when you had those hurdles coming your way?
Well, I also have to recognize my mother. And both my parents are immigrants. I'm first generation. My dad came to Canada when he was 14 from the Netherlands.
Mhm.
My mom came from Scotland when she was 19. And so there was just this belief in our family that they knew they came to Canada for a land of opportunity post-war, as we know a lot of immigrants did. And so my mom was very independent in those days, and she went back to school even herself in her late 30s. She went back to college and got her degree. And so I think the combination of that pursuit of education, you know, because you work hard, but having that education to take you to that next opportunity. But I think throughout my career, I would say most of my mentors, most of my role models have been men because I was one of the few. But I had a lot of amazing male allies and sponsors over the years because I would just show up with curiosity. I didn't want any special treatment. I also had an older brother that I just, you know, he never looked at me and said, "Hey, you're a girl, you can't play touch football. You know, you go in the goalie, you go be the goalie on the street hockey game." And so I think I just grew up knowing that if I showed up and did my best, and I knew I was a professional and I could contribute. That gave me confidence. But I really was fortunate. I had a lot of male allies that really, but I had to earn their trust. I had to show up and be prepared, over prepared, if one could say that. So I guess I was really fortunate that I had a lot of allies and sponsors that were just there for me, and I really respected that and embraced those allyships that I had.
Yeah, it makes more sense. And I think it creates a resilience within us. When then obstacles comes, we can draw on that part of it. Just when I listen to you, I often hear from other women and saying in similar situations, saying there's so much more asked of women in equal positions compared to men. Do you find the same? Because you're saying, I had the education, I have had the skill set, I had the determination. When you looked at your counterpart, did you feel sometimes that more was asked of you early on than maybe of men in similar positions?
Well, I think that there were places where the men went and you didn't go. So you
Yeah.
were very mindful that, I didn't want to be like them. I wanted to be me.
Mhm.
And I think really for me, where that balance really came was in my early 30s when I started having a family. And it was just that balance of being a mother, being a professional, and really trying to find your own, again, oh, women have babies, they stay home. Oh, women, you have a baby, you must not be serious in your career. And then just finding that place where you can say, yes, I can do this, but you may not be able to do it all. So always had a cleaning lady, had daycare, I had backup support system. So I think it's creating those support structures. And maybe as women, we need to create, we can't be everything to everyone. So you have to create those support structures and systems in place. And it's okay not to be the mother that bakes the cookies. It's okay to, maybe not be there for a luncheon, being a pizza luncheon mother, but there was other ways that you could contribute. So I think it was really, again, charting your own territory and saying, yes, I have chosen this. I've chosen to be in business. And how can I have a balance in my life with family and my career? And I think that to me was more, as I got to that stage of my career, was you could see the responsibilities and as women fall more with women than sometimes they do with men.
This is actually such an interesting topic. We within our chamber have numerous advisory councils. One of them is our next Niagara Council. So those are the emerging leaders under the age of 40, but many of them in their 20s, many of them starting out a new home, starting out a family, new careers that they're advancing. If you look at the generation now of women that maybe are in their 20s or 30s, like you indicated, you had your children in your early 30s, are they facing the same challenges that you faced, or do you find that the landscape has changed, that employers, the understanding of community has changed, the expectations on women is maybe not the same as it was when you had your children?
Well, I have two sons.
Oh,
And so I have amazing daughter-in-laws and I have grandchildren. And so I can look to my sons as, providing that support, not having it one way or the other, like very supportive partners to their partners as well, right? And so I look at that and I think they saw, their mother was a career woman, but also I was a mother and I got the benefit. I loved being a mother. I loved being a career person, a businesswoman. So I think there was a certain, I have seen the sentiment like, I see you've worked really, really hard. I don't want to be like you. You've worked too hard. I want to have more of a balance. So I think there is more boundary set, I would say. But I also think that young men and young adults, as they grow, they see role models. And I think I would speak to, I can only speak to the experience of my two sons, seeing that and but being really supportive, wanting a career, but also having balance and then a balance with the family as well. And I'm really proud of them for that.
I think it's amazing. I've always looked with curiosity at any generation, if it's older or younger, to seeing how the decisions they make, what drives them, motivates them to make the decisions, and how they move forward in their life. This actually so naturally leads us into a couple of questions that some participants have asked, and they have to do with leadership and management style. So on one side, we talked a little bit of how we manage our personal life, but the way you would describe your leadership and management style, and has it evolved throughout your career?
Recognizing I only had male role models. So being a female leader, I think I only really had one female boss throughout my whole career. And I knew I did not want to be like her. So I think I created my own style. And I think if I was to characterize it, I think the term best to characterize it is an inclusive leadership style, where you're including your team, you're collaborating, you have curiosity, you have this emotional intelligence, cultural intelligence. And I think just being able to say, the collective, so the whole is greater than the parts. And so as a leader, you're not necessarily there to make all the decisions. You want to bring your team together. You want to, whether it's your team, whether it's your board. I chair a board. I'm not there to make the decisions. How do I facilitate those types of decisions? In fact, I have a board meeting at 4:00, and we have some decisions to make. So I go in and I okay, what is my role? And how can I affect change, but at the same time know that you're not, in particular as a board member, you're not making those decisions alone. And I think as a leader, when you're leading, whether you're leading a community, whether you're leading a team, it's how do you take the collective information, collaboration to come to the best decision that you can possibly do. So I like to sort of, I feel empowered by calling my style an inclusive leadership style.
I think so too. And I think it's actually so much needed at any given time, because it allows us to foster collaboration of opinions, of projects, initiatives that we have to move this one forward. But to any style that any one of us have, management style, leadership style, we often or could occasionally face resistance toward it. It could be around a board table, it could be in a meeting room, it could be at any given time. When you're advocating, and you must have advocated for new ideas, progressive change that you wanted to see at the board table within organizations that you've moved for, you must have seen and experienced some resistance. How do you handle it? What is the best way or the best skill to bring forward to saying, I'm not moving away from this idea, but here is how I maybe build consensus, or how I can get people to come on board?
Well, a little secret about me, I'm a Libra, and Libras by virtue balance. So you've got this harmony you're always trying to create. And I was a middle child, so I had an older brother and a younger sister. So I was always sort of in the middle, not quite my brother, not quite my sister, just trying to find that right balance. And so I would say for me, and there are definitely occasions where there was resistance, things weren't happening, maybe, but I would always try to find a way to seek to understand and clarify the situation. So it might be something, I might be in a boardroom and there's some resistance from management. Maybe the board's having a conversation, but maybe it's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. So I like to kind of lead with questions like, so tell me, help me understand this, to get more clarity. Or, I see this, but can you help us understand more? And it's kind of sometimes how you frame it, right? Instead of saying that is such a bad idea, Mishka, we're not going to do it. Of course, someone's back's going to go. So it's really because everybody comes from a different perspective and different diversity of thought. And so how can you understand more? And when you do allow for those different perspectives and different diversity of thought, it opens up your eyes and hopefully can get a more innovative, because you talked about innovation, a more innovative solution. And so I think, intergenerational, how my boys that are millennials think versus how I think, I have granddaughters, I have a granddaughter, and I learn from them. What are they thinking at 17? And so that collective trying to understand, so that when you do make the decision that, it may have started off because people sometimes are resistant to change, right? So how can you come to a collective or collaborative solution? And it's not like you don't want to be a one-upman and kind of like, I won that battle. It's like, how do we continue to grow and evolve and innovate when you come with, and I think resistance and diversity of thought is so critical.
I think it's so critical. And I actually personally always enjoy it when I'm actually somehow being challenged on things and actually learn through it and grow through it, through their eyes, through their perspective. I actually I like it actually. There's an aspect of it that I find it defines my own personal growth at the same time. You've done a tremendous, and you're continuing to do a tremendous amount of work for women in leadership, for women on boards, and the Women Get on Board. You started it, and there have been a number of questions from people here asking what inspired you to do it. Was there a defining moment or experience that made you realize there's a need for this organization? Because it's always interesting. We as a chamber deal with so many individuals that are entrepreneurs that are looking at concepts, and we often ask the question, what made you know, how did you know this is an opportunity, or this is a gap, this is a niche, and we need to fill it? There's an opportunity here.
Great question. Well, I'm super excited because I founded Women Get on Board in 2015.
Yeah.
And I had already been serving on boards for almost 15 years in my career. Common denominator on all of those boards, I was typically the only woman, usually the only woman. And I knew I was not novel. And years before 2015, I'd be asked to speak at women in leadership conferences. And I actually titled my presentation, Women Get on Board. This was back as early as 2009. So I had this passion, and it was more affirmative to say, women get, like, actually do something about it. And then it was late 2014, early 2015, and it was coincidental. I was already getting a lot of conversations from some of my peers. How did you get on a board? How did you make this your career as a corporate director? And I really thought that I had a higher purpose, that there was a gap, as you said, in the marketplace to get more women on boards. And I will just give you a pivotal number to set the tone. So in 2015, the Ontario Securities Commission came out with a regime called Comply and Explain. And that was a reporting regime where it basically defined for public companies, you had to comply to say how many women were on your board, or explain, like comply that you wanted to continue to grow. And at that time, Osler's produced their first report on diversity disclosure. And in 2015, when they started doing the measurement of all TSX listed companies, the number of women on boards, it was 12%. 12% was sort of the starting point. They release every year. They release this fall for 2024. And that number has now grown to 29.8%. But that's a collective of all the TSX listed companies. So let's say we're close to 30%, which is that power of three rule that you mentioned. One woman on a board is token, two is a presence, and three is a voice. So, however, that growth has plateaued in the last few years. And so when I look at this, I know that there's a need for it. It makes good business sense. Women are more, when you get more women on board, there's more innovation, more effective decision making. The data is out there. So I think every day when I show up, my higher purpose is to get more women on boards. And so, you know, being part of that movement, being part of that ability to empower women, to connect them, to promote them, to give them courage, to give them confidence to serve on a board. That's where I am, and it really is my purpose and my passion every day.
No, it's so interesting. I serve on a number of boards, have served historically a number of boards. I report to a board, and I see the efforts that today's boards are making, and advisory councils are making, to be as inclusive and as balanced and reflective of the community as they can be. And it is a challenge for boards. It's not as easy. And I was wondering if, especially when it comes to women, if somehow the time of COVID had an impact on how we spend our time, because maybe in some ways this is board work, any advisory council work is likely being looked at, this is my private time and my personal time. And maybe we as individuals are looking at spending it differently. The challenges during COVID were very high on women. It was very difficult. Right now, with a crumbling healthcare system, a lot of women are also caregivers to their elderly parents, their younger kids. There are challenges when it comes to childcare and others. And I was wondering, is it harder now to make this number grow due to other, maybe not as much as boards not having a commitment towards it, but other demands that are on women or priority?
Well, I talk to women every day.
Yeah.
We just had a membership information session. We had over 100 women. Some are current members, some thinking about it. So I think that as women, sometimes we lack the network. So
Yeah.
we don't necessarily have the network. We're not in the same room. So how do we network into those places and those communities where opportunities for board services are? I think sometimes women lack the confidence. They're like, oh, I don't have, and I'll use this example, I don't have financial expertise. I can't get on a board. And I like to say, well, a whole board, I have financial expertise because I am a CPA, but not all boards are made up of all CPAs. There's a diversity of thought and skills. So what I say to women is just make sure you have financial acumen, that you can understand financials. That is, every board member has to have that. So how do you overcome that, and how do you build those skills? And then I think as women, sometimes a lack of focus because we're getting pulled in so many different directions. We've got our full-time work, we have young kids, aging parents. And so how do you find that time? And maybe for me, when I was an executive growing a company and we took it to a very successful exit, my two boys were quite young. I just had time to do my day job as an executive and raise my sons. I did not have time for community. And then when it opened back up again at different times. So I think you have to be mindful of the stage and age that you're at and the timing. But I do think for women, building that confidence, and you can build that confidence and, starting with, a local chapter or local community board and building on that, but getting the confidence and building on your skills and your knowledge. So there's a lot of governance programs, certifications, women get on board. We have a mentorship program. We have a financial intelligence board program. Our mission is to connect, promote, and empower. The empowerment piece is the education. So I think as women, we are very educated. We're very smart. We work really hard. Sometimes just trying to position yourself and transition from being an executive to being a board member. And Mishka, you have a lot of board experience, but I think sometimes just showing up, but also being really prepared and understanding what your role is.
I can personally say that when I look back actually on all the board work that I've done, it's extremely rewarding. And sometimes on the outset of it, we might look at it from as a time commitment and others, but I really have to say it's rewarding on so many levels in the contributions you make to an organization, to a community, as well as how it broadens your network. And with that, your opportunities at the same time. So I encourage everyone who is actually listening and who's maybe not as much involved, to talk to Deborah about it, because she has all the support, but I personally have to also say it's been extraordinary. How do you measure then? You have 950 members that are part of your organization that you have shaped. How do you measure success? What are some of the criteria? Because often at the end of the day, we are a chamber, we're dealing with a lot of businesses. The success is in our balance sheets at the end, and in our financial statements. But there's so many other ways to measure it. And I was wondering, especially with your goal and aspiration that you have for women, how do you measure success?
Community engagement. So I think, there's the financial metrics. So your revenue growth, your profit margins, all of those. But I think there's the social impact measurement. So community engagement, number of board opportunities we post out to our members, number of our members that get board appointments, the number of, thought leadership that we put out and the engagement we get on socials. So I think that to me, it's about engagement and continued growth. But you can't do that. You also have to continue to add value. You would know to your members for the Greater Niagara, you want to make sure that you're always adding value. We do member surveys. We do feedback on all of our events. We just had our inaugural Women Get On Board Summit in Vancouver. I can tell you, without putting any measurement, but the feeling of welcomeness and being out in community and bringing 150 women business leaders and partners around the table for something that hadn't been done before. And as an entrepreneur, you're always trying to build new programs, you're trying to different services. And so to me, I get really excited when I see that engagement and that continued growth. And that being said, next year we're going into our 10th anniversary. And so already laying the ground work down for new initiatives, for celebrations. And, when you step back, we try to promote and celebrate our members, but we also have to celebrate the work that we're doing. So that community engagement and impact are, a couple examples, but those are ones that really drive to me. That's my measurement of success. And yes, the financials are, I'm a CPA, so I can do all the financial metrics, and yes, that continued growth. And our goal is to get to 1,000 members. And just FYI, as of this morning, we're 977 members and continuing to grow.
Congratulations. I have to say, membership organizations is not an easy task overall, but I think you have such a successful service and business model behind you supporting women and moving forward. I think it's incredible. So, and 10 years, that is quite an extraordinary accomplishment. If a board would come to you and say, what strategies have you found most effective in advancing women in these roles and bringing them on board? We're looking at you working with women to encourage them to look at these opportunities differently. But from a board perspective, on the other side, how do boards need to show we're open to diversity, we're open to advancing women, where our doors are open? How can they make it easier for women to choose their board?
Well, it is about culture, right? About inclusive culture, because the last thing you want to do is be that one token on the board because you check a box, but you go there and you don't have a sense of belonging, you don't feel included. And so we just got the news yesterday, so super excited. We just recently worked with a company out in Vancouver. It's a TSX listed company in power grid and utility. And we work with them. We have what we call a board shortlist service. And so they have a board of 7, and the only female on the board is the chair of the board. And coincidentally enough, I knew her. But so anyway, this opportunity came to us. The CEO was very inclusive. They were very clear. They wanted to bring diversity on the board, but it was very clear they wanted somebody with a technical background that had utility, distribution, power. So we said, we can do this with you. Let's work together. And this started like last June. So June, they just appointed one of the candidates that we put forward at their board yesterday. So I feel very, very honored. But I think through that process, as an example, there was some really good candidates. They didn't have the pipeline. We had the pipeline. We shortlisted them, and it was really up to the board to decide if it was the right fit. It was a long process. I got an email from the chair of the board yesterday to say, sorry it took us so long, but we're really excited. We've just appointed, and thank you for the process. We're really pleased. And we've done probably 24 of those over the years. And interesting enough, of those 24, it could be mining, could be tech, could be power distribution, real estate. Not only did they pick one, they picked 2 women, because they were like, oh, we didn't know these women were out there. I'm like, oh yeah, they're out there. So when I look at that on success, they've identified that it's the right thing to do. They've identified a particular skill set, and they've been open to a new community and a network to go into, to bring into their board.
Yeah. I think congratulations to you. That must be so rewarding internally when you see this happening and taking place. This is excellent to hear. And it's good to hear, because I think so many people are looking at different initiatives. We often say that boards need to give themselves a bit of time too, not to delay it, but I think sometimes we make a commitment and we expect that we can change it overnight. And I think it takes, it is multiple year approach to it, that actually where we will, with commitment, see the success that we want to see. And you had mentioned 10 years. You're going to celebrate next year for your company. And that's kind of naturally leads us into future goals and ambitions. So you're going to celebrate next year the 10th anniversary of your organization. But when you're looking into the future, what are some of your main goals or aspirations in moving forward, both personally and professionally, of saying, I'm here, I'm in this place, but this is where I want to go, or I'm aiming for this aspect of it?
Great question. It's sort of funny. I was focused on next year, getting us to there, but sort of say 5 years out. I believe, my higher purpose is my thought leadership and really speaking to diversity and governance. I'm a champion for governance. So I think there's a book in me. There's definitely a book in me. I write a lot of articles. I'm not a writer by virtue, but I have a lot of thoughts. So I want to put an aspiration out there. I definitely see a book. I see somewhat of a transition in my leadership role for Women Get on Board. I would imagine that I'll probably have someone else leading it within 5 years, but, staying connected, very proud of the work. And, I think just being a keynote speaker, going out and speaking on my passion and helping elevate women in their leadership roles, continuing to do that. And then personally, maybe getting back into golf, finding I love yoga, I love walking, I find that time. I just think I have to carve out a little bit more personal time for activities like golf. So I think golf's back in my horizon, and a book.
This is amazing. I can't wait to read the book. So you have to keep us posted on it when you're ready. Because and it is, yes, to share it as well, because I think that would be extraordinary. And I think you're so skilled at the speaking engagements too. You give great credibility, great voice to the causes that I think aligns so well with your company. Are there you spoke about governance as being really something that you're very passionate about. Any other causes and initiatives that you really have your heart into that you might want to champion in the future, or saying like, they've always been sitting there, but maybe I have not given it enough energy or focus?
Well, as you mentioned in my kind of introductory bio, I co-founded last year Women Funding Women. And that was by not planned. It was situational. Sort of going back to my roots in venture capital as an angel investor in early tech companies, I found myself in early 2023 and this is the board I chair, Profound Impact. It's an early stage tech AI company, matches researchers with funders. And a very good friend of mine was the founder and CEO, and she was out raising capital. And what I could not believe as a female founder, she is a serial entrepreneur, the difficulties that she had faced at that stage in her career. And so I was like, why is it still this? So that's sort of a side project. Again, empowering women, getting more female investors into that asset class. So that's kind of a longer term passion. My focus is Women Get on Board, but I would say there's two causes that have sort of happening in parallel. Is, I believe in women in leadership. So 2 years ago, through my alma mater, which is Brock University, we created a Deborah Rosati Women in Leadership Mentorship Program. And I just noticed the call for mentors is out for the program starting in January. So we're going into our third cohort. I was really, really pleased I could create that. There wasn't anything else like that at the University for Women in Leadership. So continue to support that, excited. And then just recently, for Women Get on Board, we always align with a charity partner. And recently I've had the great fortune of having Cheekbone Beauty, our Jen Harper, who's local to the Niagara region, was a keynote speaker at one of our events. And coincidentally enough, we both got our honorary doctorates at the same day thanks to Goodman School of Business. So met her in that capacity, have now chosen them as our charity partner in giving back to their Cheekbone Beauty Indigenous Scholarship Fund. So having an impact that way, really delighted to support them. So those are sort of happening in real time, and hopefully we'll have, significant impact down the road.
Yeah, I thank you so very much for what you do for women. If it's through Brock University or in community partnerships like with Cheekbone, who's doing an incredible job and in so many ways of raising awareness and voices for so many, for all the right reasons. So thank you so very much for that. And I'm excited to see how the next cohort also grows and prospers moving forward. And Deborah, that actually leads us very naturally to our rapid fire questions. So those are the idea behind it is the one-word answer, but we have found in the past with having run this webinar that in some cases it has to be more than one word. So you're free to use any, but here are a few questions that have come forward. So in the morning, as we are calling this webinar series Espresso, we're a little bit on the coffee side here at the chamber. So in the morning, is it coffee or tea for you?
Oh, it's definitely coffee. And I have my second one sitting here.
Oh, very good. It's so good to hear. One book that has shaped your perspective.
This is 25 years ago, reading it was The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Rios. And, you know, if I could just characterize what those four agreements are, because I think it's important to live by, you know, every day I have to remind myself, be impeccable with your word. Do not take anything personally. Do not make assumptions, and always do your best.
You know what? It's in my top 20 or 10 probably books. It is always very close by, and I have often referred to it over the years. It's an incredible book, and I couldn't second it more. One piece of advice you have ever received, the best piece of advice you have ever received.
Be yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a long journey, I think, in knowing that part of it. A skill everyone should learn, other than golf. And that doesn't
Smile. Smile.
Excellent. An inspiring woman you look up to.
Well, I think she was very instrumental to all of us. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. One quote I like to share is, fight for the things you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yes, one incredible woman. Your top productivity hack. We always look for kind of ways of getting and becoming more productive overall. Do you have one to share?
Learning to say no.
It's very good. It's very good. Favorite way to unwind?
Well, it happened last night. I posted on Instagram watching the sunset.
Oh, how lovely. That is beautiful. And what a wonderful way to finish off a day too. If you had not pursued this particular career path, is there another one you had considered at one point?
Yeah, I would have went into law.
Really? Yeah. A quote that inspires you. I know you've shared a few with us, but if there is one that still resonates with you.
It's by Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
People who are truly strong lift others up. People who are truly powerful bring others together.
That's beautiful. I actually just recently, much later than most people, read her biography, and it was quite inspiring actually to read it. She is a leader among many of us, and I think many of us are turning to her wisdom to inspire us on a daily basis. A favorite place to travel to?
The beach.
The
Any
beach,
beach.
anywhere?
The beach.
Do you have a favorite beach so far that you say, there, I could always go back to?
No, but recently I've moved back to Port Colborne and I go to Nickel Beach every day.
Yeah.
I go to it every day when I'm here.
Yeah, and it's lovely. And one goal you're currently working on. I know you mentioned a few, but I thought maybe to wrap it up might be a good one.
I started this practice in 2015. It's by Chris Brogan. It's called My 3 Words. And every year I ground myself in 3 words to say, what is it that I'm going to focus on this year? And my 3 words for this year are advocate, listen, and lift.
They're wonderful. Thank you so very much for sharing that, and not just sharing that part of it, but also so much of your journey, your inspirations, that which lifts you up. And with doing that, I think it has lifted all of us up. Deborah, is there anything that you would like to share that you feel that we haven't gotten to in our conversation here that you want to wrap up with? It's not necessary, but I just thought, is there anything that maybe you would still like to say?
I feel like we had a great conversation. I just want to thank you for this time, this space to have the conversation, and really to inspire and innovate and lift others through storytelling. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, and we equally thank you for being part of it and being so open and transparent with all of us. And I also equally wanted to thank the Niagara Economic Development for bringing us together, for being the power behind these webinars. And to all of our participants, thank you for being here. And if you're interested in hearing from a leader or executive in this kind of a format, feel free to let us know. We're at info@gncc.ca, mishka@gncc.ca. We really like your suggestions and hope to share those in upcoming Espresso. So thank you for that. And Deborah, very much. My sincerest thanks.
Thank you, Mishka.
Bye-bye.
Bye.